Hi, I'm Maria Mandarino, and I wanted to thank you for being here today. And today I'm going to speak a little bit about spiritual direction and knowing yourself. And the way that I work in spiritual direction, I work with the Enneagram. It's one of the wisdom tools that I use, and I'm going to speak a little bit to that. But first, I want to speak about this idea of knowing yourself. Every ancient tradition, spiritual tradition speaks to some level of understanding the self, and the Enneagram is one of the ways that we can understand the self, and it's certainly not the only way. Those of you that know me know that I'm a spiritual director as well as an acupuncturist. So I use various traditions, wisdom traditions, when I work with clients. Certainly not just the Enneagram. Today I'm going to read a little passage from the Tao Te Ching that will take us a little further into this discussion today about self-knowing. Knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power. So in East Asian medicine, we have this this idea of joy, and we say that joy is actually a state of imbalance. What we want to bring people to is a state of contentment. And I believe that self-knowledge is one of the best ways to reach that state of contentment. Because until we know who we are, for better or for worse, the higher or the lower aspect of who we are, we can't really set out on achieving our goals, our ambitions, with any level of focus. So when I work with clients with the Enneagram, which is a personality typing system, and it's an ancient one, which is what really resonates with me, the ancient traditions. To me, they're the ones that stand the test of time, right? So it's not to say that the contemporary traditions don't work, because I certainly would not say that. But I have a personal fascinations with the ones that are ancient. So what is the Enneagram? It's an ancient system of determining personality type. Dates back to the Sufis. And each of the 9 types is said to be one of the 9 reflections of the face of God. And we lead with one of those 9 types. And we have aspects of all of the 9 in us, but there's certainly one that will step forward. And our personality can really be examined and excavated. I mean, we get into some pretty deep work with the Enneagram, understanding where our reactions to life, our behaviors, our patterns, where they come from. And it has to do with how we learned to get our needs met as children's infants even start to understand that if we behave a certain way, if we smile or look at our caregiver in a certain way, we're going to elicit a certain response, and that response feels good. And this is where the personality starts to form. So it's not fully formed until we were about age 21. And it is forming during those years. So one of the most profound ways I think that the Enneagram works is in looking at the shadow. So we, of course, we want to know the higher side of our type, right? But we also want to identify our shadow, because when we fall into patterns that we keep revisiting, or kind of filled with angst of why do I keep doing this way? Why does this keep happening this way? Why does every relationship I end in look like this? It's a different person with the same patterns all the time, and I'm doing the same thing over and over again. Or the same job, new job, new lease on everything, right? And then you find yourself in the same patterns, so why? And that question, why, comes up. We usually go to the shadow of the type in the Enneagram. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit today, and what it means to know the self and how we come about exploring the self through the Enneagram. So I'm not going to talk about the 9 types today, but I am going to talk about the 3 centers. Okay, and within each center there are three types. That's how we get the 9, right? So it's 3 times 3. So one center is the body center, and those are people that experience life through the body. Their first experience that they filter life through is the body. And then the head types, and they deal more with the mind, and they kind of experience their world through the mind. And then we have the heart center, and they are more oriented toward their feelings and heart-centered emotions. So in order to work with the Enneagram, it is an exploration to find out your type, and there are various ways that we do that. There are some tests that you can do online. There are some that I recommend over others. If you're curious about that, just reach out to me. I do customized testing, Enneagram testing with my clients, and that I personally believe is the best way to really land on your type. Ultimately, it's about what you resonate with. It's not what I assign to you. I will point things out. I will point out types. I'll elicit, things that my clients say, and talk about how that relates to the type that I think is emerging. But ultimately, it has to do with where the client lands on that. And usually where they land on it is going to have something to do with their shadow. So it's, and the shadow, that part of the shadow is going to make them uncomfortable. And it's going to be like that squirmy feeling in your chair, like, oh yeah, I do that. I really wish I didn't, but yeah, I do that. And yeah, I can see how that's how I end up in the same relationship over and over again, or that's how I end up in the same job with the same rotten boss over again. It's really not about the rotten boss. It's about me. It's about my type. It's about my shadow and how my shadow responds to things. So those are the kind of things we get to explore through the Enneagram. And again, the Enneagram is certainly not the only tool that I use, and I do use other wisdom traditions. But it is a fascinating place to explore the personality, our history. It's a brilliant place to rewrite our history going forward. Because when you see where you get gummed up, when you see where your shadow gets you to trip, it's not that your shadow is ever going to go away, but you're going to recognize it. And you're going to get to take a pause and observe and step back. And I'll help you do this in our sessions. And then you get to redirect. And to me, that's where mastery comes in, right? So it's the wisdom to know yourself. So the Enneagram gives you that. And in spiritual direction, I help you develop the mastery to work through it and to reach the higher aspect of type, right? So that's one of the things that we do in spiritual direction. So I wanted to share that today, share the importance of knowing yourself, of self-mastery, of wisdom traditions like the Enneagram. Like I said, I'll lean into the Tao at times. I will use various sources of inspiration, places that we can step off from. Might be poetry, might be other ancient texts. It may be something that you bring to session, something that came out of a journal that just like wowed you. Sometimes it's even something that comes out of a dream for someone, and we'll use that as a stepping off point and exploring type through dreams. So there's various ways that we work. Part of my role, I also want to add, is to slow you down so that we can be in things, and feel them through the 3 centers, right? So we can use the mind, and most people will start there and think their way around experiences. And then there's the body center, right? And whether you're a body type or not, I'll slow the person down and bring them into the body. Where are you feeling that in your body? How does it, is it tight? Does it feel warm? Does it feel cold? Is there a color that you can bring into that? Does it have a sound? And then the heart type. So how does that situation make you feel? That response that you have to the different boss who's really the same boss over and over again, right? How do you feel? What feelings does that evoke? So I'm there to kind of slow you down and bring you into those places. So that's also part of what we do in spiritual direction. So, so this is just a little quick overview. These are certainly stressful times coming out of the 3-year journey that we've all been in since the pandemic began, and now we're finding our way through and out of that. The Enneagram, if you're not already working with it, is really a brilliant tool for you to redirect your life and reach that deeper state of contentment, of peace, of fulfillment. And it's certainly helpful to have a guide who can who's first of all trained to do this with you, but who can also see what you can't see, because when you're in something, you can't do it. So part of what I do is to lead you to be able to do that for yourself. But when you're in a state of overwhelm, you don't have tools and you don't know where to begin, spiritual direction is really, it's essential in my life. I've been in spiritual direction since before I became a spiritual director. It's actually how I came to this work. So I do see it as invaluable. Something else I should add before we end here is that spiritual direction was part of counseling at one time. In historically, talking about your spirituality, talking about your interpretation of divinity, of God, of universal love, whatever word you put on it. I work with whatever words you use, because to me it's all one. But that was part of counseling at one time, and as Freud reshaped psychotherapy in contemporary times, talking about spirituality and God and our perception of divinity, all of that was extracted for and it was turned into a more clinical expression of psychotherapy. And that was, kind of taken out and left to clergy, essentially. So, and that is where my training was done, at a monastery. And I do work with all faith traditions, or none. Some people don't have any specific tradition, and it really does not. It does not matter. It's your spiritual path. It's what calls you forward on that path. That's the discussion that we have. We say that we have 3 seats in the room in spiritual direction: the one that you are in, the one that I'm in, and the one that the Spirit occupies. So we wait for that third voice, that whisper that comes into the conversation, that wisdom that we just make room for in spiritual direction. So I wanted to share a little bit about that with you today. I will be sharing more about the Enneagram as we go forward, and ultimately other traditions as well, but we're going to spend a little bit of time on the Enneagram first. I would appreciate it if you haven't already to like this video, subscribe to this channel. It helps enormously. Comment on this video. That also helps tremendously. And if you're inspired to, please share this video with others and ask them to sign up to subscribe to the channel as well. All right, so thank you so much for being here with me today. I look forward to seeing you again, and you take care and be well. Bye-bye.